KLZ 560. David Stryzewski joining us now, Sound Planning Group. David, welcome back. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, John. Thanks for having me.
Always a joy to have you. I appreciate it very much. Talk to us. There's a lot of scuttlebutt going on around about Biden's proposed new 44.6% capital gains tax.
Wow. Well, John, if we haven't been thinking about taxes as a part of course, the playbook here in politics and what's going to need to manifest with this, debt to income ratio as a nation being in its worst position since World War II. And that was the end of World War II, not the beginning of it, like we kind of find ourselves at the beginning of World War III. So, no, this is just a simple thing. They're saying, you know what, we need to be raising taxes. We got this deficit spending. And their answer is that they believe that, it's only going to affect those that make $400,000 or more. That's just not true.
No.
If you actually understand how the tax code works.
That's right.
The consumers pay it when we purchase things. And
that's exactly right.
Anything that fails to recognize it is just falling short.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% correct on that. The other thing, too, again, these are proposals, folks. Don't know exactly where these are going to go, but this is what this side of the aisle, by the way, thinks of you. They want to, quote unquote, tax the rich, redistribute it to the poor, although that's not what they end up doing. They make the chasm between those that have and have not way worse, even though they make it sound like they're trying to close the gap. At the end of the day, it makes it much worse. David, part of this proposal also is we keep hearing all of this, quote unquote, tax on unrealized gain. For those of you listening, meaning that if your house has gone up $300,000 in value, but you've not sold it to recognize that gain, doesn't matter. Part of their proposal is to still tax that $300K.
Absolutely. And that's illegal.
Yep.
That is.
You haven't made the money yet. It's
full on illegal.
It's totally illegal. David, I really don't see those sorts of things making it through, because I think anybody with a brain knows, to your point a moment ago, that won't stand muster of even Supreme Court if it goes that far, and it would if something like that were enacted, because everybody would be after that in a heartbeat. Because you can't tax somebody on something they've never realized the gain of.
Right. And so, the Biden administration is just kind of grasping. They're trying to, speak to their base and try to get some.
That's it. No, that's it. David, you are right there. You hit the nail on the head. This is all rhetoric. Will really end up coming to pass. There's a lot of conservatives that are up in arms over this. I don't see it really necessarily coming to pass, albeit, David, there'll be some small portions of this, if this particular administration stays in power, that most likely will. But you're right. All of this is political rhetoric to get elected in November.
Yeah, but I will mention this. Biden has talked about specifically the values of real estate.
That's right.
Several times in tax proposals, and he was looking the last time at saying, you know what, when somebody passes away and they pass their home to their children or their heirs, that's typically a tax-free transfer to the next generation, because real estate has some really nice tax benefits to it. He was looking at excluding that and saying, no, we're not going to have that anymore, and not even at $500,000 on Section 121 exemptions for married filing jointly. So they're looking at some radical changes here. And so, their typical playbook is, let's announce something dramatic, and then let's try to, do something.
We'll pedal back from that.
Similar
That's
to
right.
it, but not as extreme.
That's right. No, David, you are you know the playbook. That's exactly the way they do it. You're 1,000% correct. They throw these things out there. They see how much it will stick. How much pushback are they getting? And then they come up with a secondary plan that they still end up getting something out of. And to your point earlier, the reality is we know that they're going to have more revenue in to handle this $35 trillion in debt we have.
Absolutely. And, here's something interesting. As we look at CPI and just how it's measured, how they measure inflation, and this is supposed to be indicative of the average person spending, but it's indicative of nobody spending. Do you know that taxes are not even a part of CPI? Well, I'm going to definitely say that taxes are a part of the expense of living when we make money, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so if we can't account for CPI and taxation, then we're really looking at maybe just even a partial window of what's going on. And, John, if they go with the central bank digital currency, which, everyone's talking about, it's certainly out there, and they centralize this thing, what's going to happen is many people are going to find themselves in elevated tax brackets, because the yard sale that they did is now going to become taxable, where they were just getting cash before and they weren't exactly putting that down. But if they eliminate cash, we're going to see a lot more income be derived on people's 1040s, which is ultimately going to put them in those higher brackets as well. So if we're asking for higher brackets, we just need to understand something. It is going to affect everybody, and a lot of people who don't think that they are making enough money are probably going to be affected very negatively by that.
All right, so I always say this, you've heard me say this before, with every, even downturn in something, there's always opportunity. People, frankly, David, have become billionaires over the very same thing I just said a moment ago. Some people look at it, go bury their head in the sand and do nothing. Others take advantage of the moment. What should people be looking at to take advantage of what's happening right now?
Well, I think that we need to recognize where some of the shifts are taking place today. Globally speaking, I think that we are witnessing a global financial meltdown. And I'm not talking about a recession. Recessions are when things slow down. I think that we're actually seeing the credit cycle change so much that it's going to affect the financial institutions, and we're going to find some instability here, as was just evidenced by Republic Bank going down here on Friday. So that was our most recent banking one. How do we take advantage of these things, John? Well, a couple things that I think are important to understand. I believe that we're in the middle of a commodities super cycle. If we are going to electrify the world, guess what? It's going to take copper. It's going to take lithium. It's going to take a tremendous amount of silver. We have not been mining and discovering more mines. And so here's the point. If we can allocate into some places right now that are going to have potentially more upside because of the needs and demand, but also relative to a dollar they're going to cost more. If we inflate our dollars, guess what? It takes more of our dollars to buy 1 ounce of silver, 1 ounce of gold, 1 ounce of whatever, or a barrel of oil. And so I personally see inflation going up. It's going to be far higher at the end of this year. And so people need to be understanding something, and that is the stock market and these tech stocks. Guess what? I love it. I love making money on them too. We need to trim our percentages, though, because we've let these things run. They've gone so high, and we are concentrated in about 7 stocks so aggressively. We've never actually seen such a concentrated market before. And to say it's different this time, it's just not going to work out very well, especially if we have 14,000 plus baby boomers turning 65 every single day this year. This is not the time to be complacent on your allocation.
Okay, so what percentages should they be at?
Okay. It all depends on your risks and time frames.
Of course, and again, disclaimer: this is not a blanket for everybody. These are just generalities you're speaking in, correct?
Absolutely, that's right. So I think it's important to understand that gold and silver are a real position. 60-40 and normal worldviews for portfolio theory don't even have 1% allocated to metals. And so a very fiduciary rule would say, hey, like 10% of your portfolio should be in metals at this time. Now, I could make an argument for a higher percentage based upon how you're looking at assets, et cetera. But we look at cash assets, protected assets, risk return assets, and we want to allocate to the best within them. As we look at different stocks and different things, I think it's important to understand that there are stocks that will make money, like metal miners, oil producers, people that are out there and actually producing a function will likely do better. In fact, maybe even U.S. Steel, which is an idea no one's talked about since I've been an advisor. But if you look at U.S. Steel right now, I think it's up 150% in the last 12 months. And that's because Chinese steel and exports are becoming more expensive and more challenging to get to. But when you look at your portfolio today, the question is, what's the goal of investing? Buy low, sell high. Well, If we're at the height of a market cycle, this would actually be a good time to take some chips off the table. Okay. And because we don't want to get slumped by some big downturn. So what I personally believe is that the protected side of your portfolio is actually the place that we have the most risk right now, and that is with bonds. And I could unpack this in greater measure, but just understand, with interest rates being so high, all these corporations, like $1.8 trillion this year, need to remetabolize this debt, and there's not enough to go around for them. And so it's going to be real hard. So I think there's bankruptcies in the future, et cetera. And so bonds are going to have big challenges to them. So we're a big fan of alternatives right now. And so many people are entering into retirement. I think a 60% allocation to protected assets is really important today. You don't want to have too much risk. And so one simple thought, John, just to kind of leave your listeners with an idea, is it's called the rule of 100. If you take your age and subtract it from 100, the remainder should be the amount of dollars that you're willing to have at risk in more speculative type of investing. And then the other percentage should be in more protected and I know so money type of investments. And so these are the type of things that have been rules of thumb that have helped to keep us over time. And I'll just say this as one last point, and that is, when the market's going up, everyone has a higher risk tolerance. I love it too. But just understand, we need to have a healthy respect for both sides of the market cycle. And if we can't do that, unfortunately, we may become a statistic of this next downturn.
Yep. Good stuff. David, how do they find you? I know you got a book coming out as well. Tell us about that.
That's right. So book is called Riding Bulls and Taming Bears. I'm getting closer, John. This is my first big publication, so it just takes another minute or two.
No, I get it. That's all right.
Yeah, but it's about investing for retirement in the 21st century. I think it's going to really help a lot of people. I've got a lot of worldview ideas in there, macroeconomic things that are changing. They're just kind of uncommon ideas right now, but I'm trying to just make sense of a few things that are changing. I think it's common sense information. Website is myspg.com, or they can even go to the fedbubble.com, which is another way to get a hold of us and get some good information. And also, we've got a couple of little freebies up there. So fedbubble.com, or they can even call us at 425-821-9442.
David, as always, I appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of your day.
Hey, John, pleasure's mine.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day as well. Hi-Fi Plumbing is next.